Hello listeners, welcome back to Luke's English Podcast and welcome to this brand new episode of my podcast for learners of English all around the world. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing fine and that you've been enjoying my recent podcast episodes. Let me tell you about this one. This is a brand new one. And this is a conversation episode, and I'm talking today with Emma Camara Ortega, who is a former colleague of mine. I've known Emma for many years. We used to work together as English teachers in the same school. So I've been meaning to talk to Emma for ages on this podcast. I've always wanted to get her on the show to talk about the topic of this episode, which, as you can see from the title, is all about therapy, mental health and counselling. So Emma and I used to work together at the London School of English, as I said. She used to be an English teacher. We would hang out a lot in the teacher's room between classes. We'd go to the pub and stuff at the end of the week together. So we spent a lot of time working together. And I've had lots of my former colleagues on this podcast over the years. Long-term listeners might remember, the various guests that I've had on the show, people I used to work with. And so the thing is about Emma is that she no longer works as an English teacher. In fact, I remember when we were working together, she made the step to move into a different career path, and she became a therapist and licensed counsellor, which was actually quite a long and complicated process because she had to do various different qualifications. She did lots of different types of professional training. She was studying a lot, I remember, as well as working full-time as a teacher. She was doing all her studies. And nowadays, she is a fully licensed therapist and counsellor. Just a few of those different qualifications she took. Her certificate in counselling skills, diploma in counselling skills, diploma in psychodynamic counselling, a certificate in cognitive behavioural therapy skills, a certificate in working with couples and other relationships, psychosexual studies, trauma therapy, all sorts of things. There's a long list of her different professional training and qualifications. And so yes, now she works as a fully licensed therapist and counsellor, helping people with their mental health issues. And that is the theme of this episode: therapy, counselling and mental health. So the main themes of our conversation include, first of all, our background, how we know each other and stuff, but also what counselling actually is, what happens in a counselling session, who it's for and what it's for, how talking therapy helps. And it's commonly called talking therapy. This is a form of therapy that involves talking about the issues that you're experiencing in order to name it, to tame it, which basically is a phrase that's used to explain how naming your troubles, talking about them, describing them, helps you to deal with them, helps you to get more perspective and control in relation to the things that you're dealing with. I talked to Emma about what is involved in being a counsellor, about creating a safe, non-judgmental space, the importance of building rapport and trust and confidentiality with the people that you're working with, compassion, empathy, encouraging self-acceptance, developing an awareness of boundaries, managing relationships with others, and self-care, and also just everyday mental health, because obviously, mental health is something that we all have to take care of, that we all have to deal with. Of course, we all look after our physical health, or we should do. We do exercise and we stay healthy. We do sport, or we go to the gym and things like that to keep ourselves in physical shape. We look after our diet and stuff like that. But of course, our minds and our mental health are also something that we all should take care of on a daily basis. And that's another thing that we talk about in this conversation. Practical habits like the importance of sleep, exercise, getting regular sunlight, access to nature and personal connections, the importance of setting boundaries in your life in order to avoid a sort of emotional burnout that so many people experience, the relationships we have with our phones these days, the way we use our phones, the way we spend a lot of time scrolling, or what is known as doom scrolling through social media, looking at the kind of often quite negative stuff that you see in terms of news stories from around the world, how this affects our attention, how this affects our mood, and also seasonal things. Something known as seasonal affective disorder, SAD. It's often called SAD, and this is a kind of seasonal thing that can affect our mood and our emotional regulation with the changing of the seasons. And for example, I've got a lot of listeners in the United Kingdom, in England. A lot of you listening to this might be in the UK studying from other parts of the world. You might have come from a place where the weather is really quite different, and this is something that affects a lot of students and lots of learners of English studying in the UK, how to deal with the fact that during the winter we do have quite short days, long nights, a lot of darkness, not so much sunshine. The weather can get on top of you. You can end up under the weather, both physically and also in terms of your emotional state. So how do we deal with this? What tips do we have for managing the kind of difficult winter months in England, and indeed in plenty of other places? You might have similar weather where you live. So I hope this is going to be an interesting conversation and an insightful conversation. Also, I encourage you to reflect, of course, on your own mental health, but also relate this to the importance of maintaining good mental health for your learning of English, right? Because obviously we've got to keep ourselves in good shape, and keeping our minds in good condition. This is a really important sort of baseline foundational thing that we have to maintain in order to make sure we are in tip-top condition in order to learn English as well as possible. I want you to try to notice plenty of useful vocabulary and phrases relating to mental health and well-being throughout this conversation. As you would expect, touching on all these things, you will hear all sorts of common and useful phrases for talking about this subject. So watch out for those things. Now, there is a PDF for this episode. It's a full transcript of the conversation, but also a vocabulary list. And I've picked out lots of different words and phrases relating to all the things that I think are relevant in this conversation. And you'll find a full vocab list with definitions, example sentences, and some questions that you can use to practice actually activating this vocabulary for yourself. So check out the PDF. You'll find loads of stuff there which will definitely help you to learn English from this episode. Thank you to Emma for being a guest on the show. It was very interesting to talk to her. I really hope you enjoy this conversation, that you find it insightful, helpful, and also good for your English. So without any further ado, I'll talk to you again at the end of the conversation for a little bit, but now let's get straight into it. Let's meet Emma and talk about mental health, talking therapy, and counselling. And here we go. So how do we actually know each other? My audience might enjoy knowing how we first met and stuff. So how do we know each other?
So I think I have a memory of meeting you in Westcroft Square in 2006.
Yeah,
and
probably.
you were stressing, prepping a lesson. It was 10 minutes before lesson time, and everybody was stressing, and you were cutting stuff out, and I don't know, like prepping something. And it was my first day, and I think and I don't think we spoke on that day, but you were there. And I think we started work essentially at the same time at LSE, at the London School of English.
Yes.
I was 26, I think, or nearly 27, and a whole bunch of us started around the same time. It was a great bunch of us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you left before me. I left in 2016, and you left in 2014, was it?
2012.
Oh, 2012, yeah. Wow.
So I spent 6 years teaching at that school, But you put in, I guess, a decade of teaching there.
Yeah, yeah. And I promised myself I wasn't going to stay there more than a decade. I thought a decade is a long time, isn't it? My
Yeah,
goodness, a decade of my life. And it was a wonderful time, but I knew that I didn't want to stay there for much longer. So
yeah,
I did all my counselling training whilst there. I think I probably started soon after I met you. I did a really short intro course, and then I did a certificate, and then I did a diploma, then I did another diploma, then I did my clinical placement, and I volunteered in various charities, and I did all that whilst doing one-to-one at LSE.
yeah.
So over about 6 years, I did that.
Right, that's a long process, isn't it? That's a lot.
Yeah,
So just to be clear, right? So you started teaching English in Spain because you are like your dad is Spanish. You speak Spanish. You lived in Spain for a long time.
yeah,
So you spent sort of like quite a long time teaching English in Spain. Then came to London, and eventually you found a job at the London School like me.
mm,
But then
yeah,
after quite a few years of teaching English, you decided, yeah, that you would move into being a counsellor, so counselling and therapy.
yeah.
So, yeah, why did you make that change then from English teaching to counselling?
So I became an English teacher because, as you said, my dad's Spanish. I wanted to live in Spain. I thought, okay, I need to earn a living whilst I'm out there. I really enjoyed it, but I knew that I didn't want to do it forever. So I came to London specifically to study and to find out what I wanted to do. And whilst I was doing that, I also needed to earn a living. So that's why I worked in the school. And I guess I was looking for more fulfillment. I I didn't feel very fulfilled. I
Mm.
loved parts of the job. I loved the getting to know people and the supporting them, and the kind of counselling type bits of the job are the bits that I really enjoyed. But I wanted something more fulfilling.
Because you were
I guess
teaching
I was
one
a
to
bit bored.
one.
Mm,
Yeah, you were teaching
yeah,
one to one mainly because I did a mix. I was doing a lot of group courses, but there were some teachers who sort of did mostly one to one. So you're doing mostly one to one. So that's sitting down with one person in these
yeah.
sessions. Is it quite similar to counselling?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, very much so. You've got the kind of the nervous, people are often nervous on day one, and you've got to build rapport and build trust and kind of get to know them and work out how to help them and collaborate and support them on their learning journey. So there are lots of crossovers, and as you said, I did mainly one to one, and sometimes I would teach one to one for weeks or months. So you get to know the person very well, and yeah, it's very much about, I think, counseling and teaching. You kind of want to create a safe environment so that they can learn and trust you and yeah, thrive, I guess.
Yeah, and there's sometimes with teaching one to one or teaching English in general, you find that with your students, you're not just teaching them English, but you're also kind of helping them with their motivation or helping them with the way they feel about themselves. It's like a very personal thing,
Mm,
and there is a certain amount of kind of what's the word for it, guidance and coaching with them the mental side of it
mm.
as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, massively confidence building and kind of exploring what issues they have and kind of practicing, working on whatever they want to work on, really. And I suppose with counselling, it's the same. They
Mm,
come in. Sometimes people come in and they don't know what they want to work on, and that's fine. Other times people are very specific, but with counselling, again, it's very much about having that safe space where people can explore and creating that trusting relationship. Without that, you can't do the work, really, without that trust and without that rapport.
Yeah. So that seemed to be the thing that you were enjoying, or the thing that you kind of moved towards. So just tell me about counselling. Like, what is counselling? What does it look like? What do you do?
So that's a good question. So it's essentially, as I said, a safe space, a confidential space where you can explore whatever you want with someone who's trained to listen and trained to unpack what's going on for you. Essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah.
A place to explore thoughts and feelings and experiences, to be witnessed, to work alongside somebody trying to. I've got very interested in neuroscience recently, and essentially, counselling is about creating a safe place where you can rewire the brain in healthier ways, where you can learn about safety and trust and regulation and processing and
Yeah.
connection, so that
Yeah.
you can make real changes for yourself going forward.
It's talking therapy, right? That's how it's often
Yeah,
described. Is that right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you're there to listen to the person. I mean, so you kind of encouraging them to talk about things that are bothering them, and in the process of talking about it, that's a sort of therapeutic thing, right? I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but
Yeah,
that's just like a basic definition.
yeah. And can I just say as well that some people don't feel ready to talk, and that's fine. Sometimes silence has its place. Sometimes people want to draw, and then something will come up from that. But yeah, so we say, name it to tame it. So by talking about something, by actually putting a name to your feelings, you can actually calm that alarm system of the brain, the amygdala, which makes feelings seem much less overwhelming.
Mm,
And,
mm,
it can really help process, help organize thoughts and feelings. It can help regulation. It can help reduce distress. And it can really bring about a lot of clarity. As I'm sure when you talk to somebody about what's going on for you, sometimes it can feel a whole lot clearer getting it out. And,
hmm
especially if somebody is validating and a good listener and is up for just exploring it with you, to get it out of your head and to kind of get it in the room, and you can kind of examine it and look at different perspectives. And yeah, compassion is very important with what I do as well, because if you're in the compassionate presence of somebody, then it can really reduce that really harsh self-critical voice that some people have, and that shame. I think we all carry around a lot of shame,
mm,
and it can really help self-acceptance.
yeah.
By saying stuff that you're really ashamed of or really distressed by, and have somebody just listen compassionately, can really help you process that and feel less shame about it.
What sort of things do people talk about? What are the problems that people have when they come to you? I mean, there's different sort of sizes of problem, I guess. Some people probably
Mm.
have really major issues that they need to deal with, but then, counselling is for everyone, right? So, uh, what are the sort of typical things that people will talk to you about?
So, um, people often talk about relationship stuff. It's either, you know, simply put, I suppose it's about the relationship with ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, maybe like we were saying before, critical inner voice, lack of confidence, negative thinking, or and so often it's overlapping problems. Most of the time it's overlapping problems. Relationship with others, so relationships, romantic relationships, relationships with friends, with family members. People come to see me because they're feeling depressed or anxious about things. Maybe they're grieving, maybe they're experiencing work problems, maybe they've experienced trauma growing up, or very unhappy or distressing family life, trauma as a child. Maybe it's problem coping with everyday life. Maybe they have autism or ADHD. Maybe they've been diagnosed with a personality disorder of some sort. So, it can be lots of different types of things, but often they're all overlapping.
Right.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Must be difficult to sort of deal with that. I mean, you're trained, but that must be quite overwhelming for you, I would imagine. Someone's coming in and you're kind of unpacking all of the issues they're dealing with. I would feel like pretty sort of overwhelmed by the responsibility. Me.
Yeah, well, I have to remember that, I can't fix it. Counselling doesn't fix it. It's just about creating the right conditions to be able to explore and help the person help themselves, I guess.
Help
Help
them
to
to
find,
help to deal
help
with it.
them, and
Help them
help
to
them
kind
to
of
understand.
to help them get a sense of what it is they're dealing with, which will help them to carry on. Because I suppose if you don't talk to anyone and these problems build up and you lose all perspective of them, then you can end up in a very vicious cycle where that leads to very damaging behavior. But talking to someone else, can help you get perspective and help you find ways to deal with it. But you're not necessarily there to fix things
No,
for
and
someone.
I can't fix things. I can be there, I can support, I can explore, I can be curious, I can be interested, I can care. So I can create all these conditions, and together we create all these conditions. So it's not just me, it's me and my client. And self-awareness is everything. Once you can understand something better, like you say, then you know what you're dealing with. Then all of a sudden, maybe you can feel a bit more empowered to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. These are my options. What
Yeah,
what do I want to do about it?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so,
It's a
mm,
it's a very important role, right? So, um, why is it important for counsellors to exist? And why do people need counsellors in their lives?
why do people need counselors in their lives?
I mean, I suppose what I mean is, why is it
Oh,
hard for people to do the same thing or deal with the same thing in their own personal lives? That your role is to provide them with something that perhaps they don't have
you
in
mean
their other. Yeah,
Yeah, you mean why can't we just speak to friends, or is that what
mm,
you mean?
yeah, I guess
Well,
so.
yeah, I mean, before, who did people speak to before? Their priest, their vicar, I don't know, their teacher, their friends. So these people can still be incredibly supportive, and some people find that that's enough. If you have very good friends who are good at listening and really supportive, then that's maybe enough for some people. But of course, counselors are trained and they're impartial, and they focus entirely on you. There's no agenda. With friends, even the loveliest friends, sometimes they can be a bit dismissive. So, don't be silly. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Or they can say, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I had that problem," and then they start talking about themselves.
Yeah.
So do you see what I mean? And then it
I
takes
totally
away
see.
from,
Yeah, because
you.
yeah, even your closest friends and people in your family that you love and you're very close to, there's still a kind of dynamic there, in your relationship, which is perhaps not the appropriate space for unloading all of your issues. And also maybe you want to be able to talk to someone impartial so that you can then be a stronger person for your friends and family. So you're not sort of burdening them with the responsibility of listening to you and all that stuff. And sometimes we just don't have time. There's no way of breaking the normal kind of rhythms of friendship and family. To find a space for that.
And often, if you speak to your mum or your wife or your best friend or whatever, the relationship, like you say, you're too kind of emotionally close to be able to be objective, whereas
Yeah.
because I'm separate, I don't know them, and I'm separate from the situation, I can kind of see things more clearly in some ways, and of course sometimes I get it wrong, and we kind of explore that, but I can kind of, I'm impartial, and I've done a lot of training to work on my stuff, which hopefully means that I'm kind of aware of, my stuff. So I keep my stuff out of the room, and I'm able to have that separation. Or, I'm aware of stuff coming up for me possibly in the room, which can be really useful as well. So I think just the fact that there is that impartiality and that space, I guess you're creating that space for somebody, so that they can figure stuff out, and I'm on that journey with them.
These days, it's like a lot more acceptable to talk about your mental health and stuff like that than it used to be, isn't it? But people talk about a mental health crisis as well. Certainly in the UK, probably it's the same in lots of places. We talk about a mental health crisis. What's going on there, do you think? Why do you think there's people are struggling with mental health? Or is it that we just talk about it more, so we're more aware of it now than we were before when people used to hide it? What do you think?
I think a bit of both, really. I think there are more stresses and less support. I think the pandemic left a huge mental health, footprint on people, especially young people, because, we're in our 40s, but, people in their 20s who were in their teens during the pandemic, that must have been very difficult for them.
Yeah.
So I think that has left, that trauma has had a lasting effect on people. And, people are struggling. Let's face it, the world, watch the news, the world's in a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Difficult to get a stable job. There's the cost of living crisis. Support systems maybe aren't as strong as they once were. Communities maybe aren't as strong as they once were. The NHS is struggling. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. So how will someone know if they should probably go to counselling or therapy? I mean, what are the signs that someone should listen to or notice, do you think?
Yeah, so everyone can benefit. You definitely don't need to be in crisis. The sooner you seek help, the better. But some signs could be, feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, having suicidal thoughts. thinking of harming yourself, withdrawing.
Withdrawing.
Withdrawing from people. When people are
Oh.
depressed, when people get very depressed or suicidal, they often withdraw. They go into themselves. They don't. It's more difficult to reach out.
Mm.
So when you feel yourself doing that, it's very important to do the opposite of what you feel. You feel like withdrawing and just staying at home and not talking to people. It's very important to do the opposite, to reach out, phone someone, seek professional support, talk to a friend. Problems sleeping, feeling completely overwhelmed with life. So, those are some good reasons to speak to somebody like me. But as I
Yeah.
said, everyone can benefit, and you don't have to wait until you're in a crisis.
Yeah. 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 What do you think are ways to kind of look after your mental health, as well as going and seeking help? What are some of the other kind of crucial things, do you think, that can help someone stay mentally healthy in their day-to-day life?
I think sleep, maybe we don't talk about it enough, but sleep is really, really important, to get good
Mm.
quality sleep, to sleep enough. It underpins everything else. We process a lot of trauma during sleep. Our, brains have a chance to process and organize stuff during sleep. So that's really important. And poor sleep is linked to higher risk of mental health problems, higher risk of anxiety, stress, low resilience. So sleep's a big one. So I try and get about 8 hours. Don't always manage it, but I
Mm.
try. Connection, of course, what we're talking about, really. Talking to people, feeling connected and supported by friends, by family, having supportive relationships in our life. Exercise, very important. It boosts those mood regulating chemicals, serotonin and dopamine and all that good stuff. So that's
Yummy lovely bit of, I love a bit of serotonin in me.
yeah, so that's
Yum, yum,
really,
yum.
really important. I never feel like going to the gym, but after coming out of the gym, I always feel great. And of course, some people hate exercise, so some people hate the gym, and that's fine. But try and go for a walk, or find
Mm-hmm.
what works for you. Find something that you enjoy.
And apparently it doesn't have to be a huge step either. Sometimes just walking around the block or just going out for a half an hour walk can make a huge difference,
Yeah,
because you get some exercise, but also getting some sunlight is actually really important.
yes.
Yeah.
Sunlight and green spaces, they can regulate our circadian rhythms. So, very important for regulating when we feel sleepy or when we feel alert, and regulates mood as well. So, getting out in nature, really important. Like you say, sunlight, really important. And it doesn't have to be, as I said, it doesn't have to be a kind of gym session. Like you said, it can just be a gentle walk and, in a green space. It can be stretching. It can be just movement of some sort. It's really
Mm-hmm.
important. And of course, fun. It's important to have fun and to rest and have boundaries. Do you know what I mean by boundaries?
Well, yeah, I do. Yeah, but I mean, you mean boundaries in sort of in your personal life, or well, no, I'm not sure I know exactly. What do you mean by that?
So therapists, we talk about boundaries a lot. So basically, we're talking about, limits. We can't be there for everybody. We can't do everything. We can't, work all the hours under the sun. We need to have boundaries in order to look after ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Think of it like, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but think of it like a garden, and you've got your fence around your garden. That's your boundary.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
this then. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
and I was just going to say, everything in your garden is your responsibility. All the weeds and the the grass and the flowers and all of that you have to look after, and that's your responsibility. But everything out of that isn't your responsibility. So it's good to think of it like that, because I have a lot of people coming to see me, and they struggle with boundaries. What you were saying about responsibility. People feel that they feel responsible for everybody. They've got to save or help everybody, and they forget about themselves.
I think that's probably, I mean, I don't know, but I'm guessing that it's probably quite common that people feel this sense of, first of all, having an impact on everyone else. Like they're concerned that they're going to, if they share their problems, that they're going to transfer their problems to other people. They don't want to make life difficult for anyone else. And yet at the same time, they also feel sort of a responsibility for everyone in their lives, especially like parents, especially like, parents who've got children, or just when you think of family connections, you feel you're responsible for everybody else. And that you feel that sense of burden, and a sense of kind of control of, you want to make sure everyone else is all right. And that sense of responsibility can really be quite heavy. So maybe that's what you're talking about when you talk about boundaries. You're saying that this is where you are, this is what you're responsible for, and to a certain extent, anything that's beyond this boundary, you can just sort of like not worry about it so much, I guess.
Or it's very human to care about people you love and to want to be able to help them, and so I think it's really natural to feel that sense of responsibility and that burden, like you say. But at the same time, I think it's important to think about, the boundary. What is your responsibility? What can you realistically do? You need to protect your time, your energy. You need to have personal limitations. Otherwise, otherwise you're going to get burnt out. Otherwise, you're going to suffer. And then you can't help the people you love. So in my job, one of the things they teach us when we do our training is, we have to have really strong boundaries. So when I see somebody, we see each other for about an hour. If I didn't have that boundary, that could go on for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And,
Right.
a boundary protects everybody. It's, people can feel safe when they know what the boundary is.
And talking about you and your boundaries in your job, I mean, do you not ever get clients where it sort of starts to affect the rest of your life? So do you ever find yourself being bothered by, worrying about and thinking about clients and their problems outside of your sort of working day?
Yes, sometimes. But again, that's where the training comes in, and the boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm human, and I care for all my clients, and I know them really well. So yeah, I can think about them, and often do, and worry about them. But at the end of the day, I know that we have, our work is done in the therapeutic hour, and I can't help them outside of that hour. Hopefully that hour provides them with the skills and the coping mechanisms they need, so that they can, as I said, feel empowered to help themselves. It's quite disempowering trying to help people when actually they need to help themselves. Maybe they don't want to be saved. Often people want to help themselves, or some people do want to be saved. It depends on the person, and we would talk about that. What does that feel like? Where does that come from? That feeling.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It is fascinating, though, isn't it? God, we're such complicated creatures, aren't we?
Yeah, and I've always found it fascinating, people and behaviors and our motivations. And so I've always been interested, which is, I guess, why I chose this profession. It is fascinating because it's endless.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, What are some of the most common things that you notice in people? Like what are the things that mess with our heads? Do you find it's often the same kind of thing?
Yeah, we're all very similar in some ways. So, um, anxiety and depression are very common. A lot of us, we can have a very critical inner voice. We're often a lot kinder to other people than we are ourselves. We often have, very high standards for ourselves, but we're a lot kinder to our loved ones. So I say to people sometimes, the way you talk to yourself, would you speak to your best friend like that? Or would you treat them like that? Or would you have those standards for them? And they say, no. And I say, so why is it okay for you to speak to yourself like that? So, so that's a common one. And boundaries, as we said, and that sense of responsibility for everybody, that kind of that need to fix people or save people, which can sometimes mean that people really deplete themselves. So that's a big one. People pleasing.
What's that? What's that?
I think many of us have been brought up to kind of to be polite and to say yes please, and to not be difficult, and to please other people basically. And often it can cause lots of problems because you're afraid of hurting the other person, you're afraid of disappointing them, you're afraid of letting them down, you're afraid of being disliked. So you can find yourself living a life that's not yours, saying yes to everything, and then going home and thinking, oh God, why did I say yes to that? And now I've got to do that. And some people even end up in careers that they don't like just because 20 years down the line, their parents told them they had to be this or they had to be that. And you see what I mean? So I think it can be really hard to sit with that discomfort of disappointing people or displeasing people in some way, because a lot of us have been brought up to be so polite.
Yeah.
And
not
I
that
think
it's
we
bad
all
to be
do it.
polite, but
No.
But at the same time, it becomes damaging when you start bending over backwards to try and make everyone else happy around you, and you suffer as a result. Yes, it's very common, isn't it?
Yeah, we all do it. I do it. I'm sure you do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
But I guess it's the degree to which we do it. Sometimes it can be quite extreme.
And to the extent that you're aware of it as well, right? Because you might be aware of it, and you might think, well, this is the extent to which I'm going to people please, and then I won't people please any more than that. But you don't want to cut it out completely sometimes, because you don't want to be a completely self-interested person. It's like you've got to get the balance right. Being aware of it can mean that it doesn't get to a point where you're suffering as a result of it.
Exactly. So it's all about awareness. So, in a counselling session, you can talk about that and become more aware of it. When you do it, why do you do it? Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it a little bit less? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? How does it affect your life? You can explore all of that. Yeah. So yeah, it's really, really interesting.
What do you think about, we were talking about our lifestyles, getting exercise, getting sleep and stuff like that. These lifestyle things, I guess, I'm no expert. I'm just coming to this as a sort of lay person, I suppose. I did an A-level in psychology a long time ago, but that's far from the actual practice of doing counselling. But so we talked about lifestyle stuff, and I guess this is important for not exacerbating things. That if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting enough sunlight and doing exercise, then your general baseline level of mental health is going to be pretty poor. You're going to be much more at risk of, having perhaps more severe anxiety, depression, and things like that.
Mm.
So, talking about lifestyle, what about phones? How do you think phones affect people's mental health?
I think that doom scrolling is, can be very problematic, and they're incredibly addictive, aren't they? So
Yeah.
you know, I think that they're definitely a coping mechanism. For if we're feeling stressed or if we're feeling overwhelmed, I can find myself in the evening, for example, just on my phone for hours reading. They're just so useful as well, aren't they? There's
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
on the phone. I think it's really important to be aware of how it's affecting you. And for example, sometimes I can pick up my phone, open my, Guardian app, start reading about world events, and immediately I can start feeling anxious. I'm really, really aware of that sense of, oh God, what's happened now. So I think it's really important to be aware of how it's affecting you, and to put some limitations, again, boundaries, some limitations on it. Do you really want to be on your phone for several hours a day? I know I don't.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I do allow myself a few hours in the evening, as I said, to mindlessly scroll on Facebook or read the news. Probably more than I should. I don't have a teenager, so I'm not really sure about this, but my impression is that teenagers have quite a problematic relationship with phones, because they're just so addictive. So I think important to put limits on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. For younger people who have come into the world after phones arrived, where
Mm-hmm.
that's just totally normal, like people who don't know what life is like without these devices, I can imagine how difficult it is to try and live a life without, live a life offline, or live your life without constantly being hooked up to a phone in some way. That
Mm.
must be really hard. I mean, like to an extent, like phones are quite what's the word? I don't know. Evil is not the word, but the way they creep into your life, they're very
Mm.
cleverly designed, obviously, to always maintain your attention at
Mm.
all times. So that's kind of what they do. They sort of manipulate our attention, force us to always be on whatever platform it is, and that might not be very good for us. But yeah, it's important to recognize that and keep it
It's
in
also
check.
it's also important to recognize, or to think about, you know, do they help young people in some ways? And I'm sure in many ways they do. Some
Yeah,
people have, maybe for us old people it's hard to understand, but I think a lot of young people, they have a lot of all their social connections online. There's a
yeah,
whole world online that's keeping them connected, um, which is a great source of support for them, perhaps. So
yeah, and
important to recognise that.
support and joy as well, right? I mean,
Yeah, fun, joy. Yeah, um, yeah. So
yeah,
I think it's easy to badmouth phones, but or social media, and I think maybe, I'm not sure if it's more negative than positive, but I definitely think that it's very important for some people, and
yeah.
offers some people a lot.
But if boundaries is the key word for this episode, then I guess it is about boundaries with the phone as well. Because
Yeah.
where was I reading? I was probably scrolling on my phone and I read this, ironically enough. But I read that things like certain habits with your phone are worse than others. And one of the things that we apparently shouldn't do is when we wake up in the morning, the first thing is to look at your phone, which is what, of course, everybody does, which is quite sad, I think, that often the first thing we do is, just reach for our phones and start looking at the screen. Apparently, this is really bad for you because you talked about circadian rhythms, that being exposed to the light from the phone is not the best way to start the day, that you should avoid the phone. Drink water, have a decent breakfast, and try and get the sun on your face before you go into your phone.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Yeah.
I know that when I wake up, I know what I should do. I know that I should stretch. I should listen to bird song. I should, I don't know, be aware of what's coming up for me in my body, but my alarm goes off, which is on my phone. I pick up my phone, and then to stop myself from falling back to sleep, I start reading something, so yeah, they're just incredibly convenient, aren't they? Incredibly convenient and addictive. Yeah, so it's about finding healthier, I suppose, healthier habits and experimenting. Don't be afraid to experiment with different things. Like a friend of mine recently, she had a whole weekend where she didn't use any technology, no phone all weekend, and she said it was wonderful. So I think it's good to try these things so that we can compare. What does
Yeah.
that feel like?
I love it, actually. I mean, it's really hard for me not to be on my phone all the time because obviously a lot of my work is online stuff. So I'll just, in the evening, once the kids are finally asleep, I'll just instantly go to my laptop and do something. But I'm really trying to, just like read books or just do something else where I'm not on my device. And it is much nicer. I do feel better when I do that.
Do you think that our attention spans have been affected by the phones? Because I think mine has, definitely. It's hard
Yeah.
to sit down and get into a book, for example, because you get the instant gratification from the phone, don't you? And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a challenge for me to just sit and just read without, it's almost automatic. Your arm goes down to your phone and you're looking at, and I've talked about this on the podcast before where you think, oh, I'm just going to check the weather for tomorrow, which is like a good thing to check. It's you planning for the next day. I'll just check the weather, and you go on your phone. Oh, there's a notification from this thing, and then you look at the notification, and then you're into that particular social media platform, and then you're scrolling through, and then you're on one thing, and then you're in a rabbit hole, and then you go, oh, I've got to put my phone away for goodness sake, and you close it and put it away, and then you're like, oh, but I forgot to check the weather. And then you go back in again, and then you're off again on some other trip, somewhere else.
That happens to me all the time. Yeah, I think that's a very common thing with phones.
It's a funny thing, but setting boundaries and stuff. Like my wife and I, we went through a period where we decided no phones in the bedroom. That was good. That was a good thing. And we had a specific shelf in the living room where we would put our phones, and we bought old-fashioned alarm clocks. And when I say old-fashioned alarm clocks, I don't mean wind-up TikTok ones, but just like digital alarm clocks. Those are old-fashioned alarm clocks now. And that was good. That was a good time. We should go back to doing that.
Why did you stop?
I don't know. I think the phones crept their way back in somehow. I guess maybe one of us started using the phone once, and then the other one was like, well, all right then. And then, then the next thing you know, or maybe you get ill one week, and so you end up with your phone in the bed, and then, you just sort of like get out of the habit, I suppose. Habits. They're important.
Yeah, they are. I always have my phone on silent always because I can't stand the constant pings. It's feels very intrusive. I try to limit the use because I want to be living life. I want to be experiencing life in the moment. I was watching. I was standing by a river, I think yesterday, and it was very beautiful, and the sun was sparkling on the water, and there were swans, and somebody had their phone out and they were filming it, and I thought, no, I just want to be in the moment. Like when you see lots of people at Glastonbury, for example, and they're all on they're all filming everything. I think, do you really watch this back afterwards? I'm not sure, but it's like you say, it's a habit, isn't it? We've all got into the habit of filming everything.
It's funny that though, isn't it? You film the moment that you're experiencing, like this beautiful river with the swan on it. You're filming the swan. You're not actually looking at the swan. You're actually looking at your phone while it's filming the swan. And then later you're watching it again. So you never, at any point, did you actually genuinely experience the swan on the river. Instead, it was mediated through your phone the entire time. So it's probably better. I mean, I don't know. Tell you what the best thing is if you look at the swan and enjoy actually seeing it with your own eyes while your friend films it and then they send you the video later. But no, it's true. Yeah, you got to try and just enjoy things in the moment, I guess, if possible.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Put our phones away and just be in the moment and see what comes up for us.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, all right. Well, that's nice. You're in Aberystwyth, are you? Are you in Aberystwyth at the moment in Wales?
Can you say it? Aberystwyth.
Aberystwyth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, it's not the most difficult Welsh place name.
No. I'm in Aberystwyth. So it's a lovely seaside university town. My mum is from a village nearby called Devil's Bridge. And when I was about 8, we moved from Hampshire to here when I was 8. And then when I was 18, that's when I moved to Spain. So, I've got a lot of roots here, and my mum lives here, and, we've got a lovely house here, and I've got other family here. And after finishing in LSE and doing all my training in London, I went traveling for a bit. I had a baby, and then I moved back here. So, I've been here for about 8 years now. 8 or 9 years. Back.
Yeah.
And
nice part of the world.
It's lovely. It rains a lot.
Yeah.
At the moment we've had a lovely week of sunshine, which is beautiful. Really, it's the most beautiful place in the world when the sun's shining. But the winters can be quite long and wet. And I'm not sure what Paris is like, but maybe quite cold and wet as well. But
cold emotionally.
Oh yeah,
it can be. No. Paris is, despite the stereotype where people imagine it's all flowers blooming and fresh air and stuff. It's the weather is almost exactly the same as it is in England. But England has got the reputation. England, Britain, England/Wales. The weather's pretty similar across those two countries. But so Paris it's got the reputation of having lovely springtime weather, but it's just as grey and rainy as it is in London or something like that. Paris doesn't have that many green spaces, which is a pity. I mean, it's got wonderful things. Of course, it's Paris. It's amazing. And it does have nice parks, and there are great sort of museums and other cultural things to enjoy. But one thing I do miss is certainly the green spaces and being surrounded by nature. Whenever I go back to England and go and stay at my parents' place, they live in Warwick in the Midlands, and it's wonderfully green. Even though it's a town, quite a busy town, it's still very green. So that's a lovely thing to have.
And I am affected by the winters and the weather, and as are a lot of people. I get a lot of clients coming to me, and from September onwards, and they find that their mood can really dip at these times. So I think it's especially important to look after your mental health in the winter, during the winter months, and to do more stuff to protect yourself from that, those winter blues, which are so common.
Yeah, people coming from abroad and going to live in the UK, this is definitely going to be one of the things they have to deal with. I mean, like when you lived in Spain, so you lived in the south of Spain where it's very sunny and hot.
Yeah, like all the time.
Just constantly.
Constant sunshine.
Yeah, how boring.
I know, it was. It did get boring after a while. So.
I'm sort of joking because I've got Spanish listeners. I'm sure it's fantastic. But so you lived in Spain there for how long? About 10 years or something?
Yeah, about 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you moved back to London.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like then? Was it a shock to kind of experience your first London winter?
Yeah, it was a bit depressing. It was a shock. I'd forgotten. I'd been in Spain for so long. I had got to a point where I just took it for granted. Yeah, I knew the weather was great, obviously, but I think I'd forgotten how bad the weather in the UK was. And so, yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Yeah, and the weather where I live in West Wales is even worse than it is in London. So it's a shock again.
Yeah, so we're talking about, yes, as you said, a long winter where it's from October time when the clocks change, right? So the clocks go back, and so you end up with the sun going down quite early in the evening. Like 4:30 in the winter, the sun can sort of go down, so you end up with these long nights. Even the days can be quite dark if it's grey overhead, and it can be dark and wet. So how do you deal with that? Do you have any ways of like dealing with those cold, dark winters that we get?
So last year I cheated and I went to my friend's wedding in Thailand for 2 weeks, which was amazing because it really broke up the winter. But obviously I can't afford to do that all the time. So I have a sad lamp, which I use sometimes.
Wait, you have a sad lamp?
Do you know what a sad lamp is? Seasonal affective disorder.
Oh, right. I thought you meant a lamp that was sad. Maybe you need to talk. It should talk to you.
No.
Right. Sad. Seasonal affective disorder. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't have it with me to show you, but it's a lamp which, is very bright and it kind of imitates sunlight and it can lift mood. So I've got one of them. I don't use it a lot, but it's kind of there if I need it. I try and embrace the good stuff about winter. I try and do lots of saunas. I'm not great at cold water immersion. I'm not sure if you are, but God, I can.
No thanks. That's cold water immersion. That's where you dive into a freezing pool of water, or you sit in an ice bath.
But it's getting quite popular here, and it has real mental health benefits. You do the sauna, and then you jump in the sea, or you get a bucket of cold water tipped over you, and it's supposed to really have a lot of mental health benefits.
Not in the short term, because in the short term it's like, this is horrible. But I suppose, yeah, I mean, I'm joking, but I understand that. Yeah, it does have benefits. And it's like a Scandi thing, isn't it, as well? You look at the Scandinavians, and all the things you're describing are things that are quite typical there, jumping into cold water after being in a sauna and stuff.
It's become really, I don't know about in England, but in Wales or around where I live, it's becoming really popular, the whole sauna, cold water immersion thing. I try and go to the gym more, and I suppose, maybe somebody, there's a book called Wintering. Somebody told me about it, Wintering, which I haven't read, but I think it's talking about kind of embracing the changes of the season, that it's okay to kind of hibernate and take things slowly. and, snuggle up by a warm fire, and, it's okay. It's, a different pace of life than the spring or the summer, and just to kind of embrace it.
Yeah, it can be nice. It can be nice. You wrap up warm, put a nice pair of lovely warm socks on, a pair of slippers, and snuggle up with a blanket, nice cup of tea or something, and just enjoy the nice things about the winter. Yes, and for visitors, because I've got quite a lot of people in the UK who listen to this podcast, and I don't think they are native English speakers who are already from the maybe I've got a few, but I think most of them are students who've traveled to the UK, right, from around the world, and they must experience all this stuff living on their university campuses or whatever, or their halls of residence or whatever. They must have these experiences where it's the first winter. They arrive in September or August or something, and quite quickly the weather goes downhill, like really fast, and then they're plunged into their first year of studying where they're doing a lot of work, and it seems to be dark all the time. But I guess you have to try and enjoy the cozy side of things, but also make an effort to get out when if the sun comes out, you go outside, make the most of it, and get exercise, and also remember that it's not going to last forever, that
that it
January,
will pass.
January, February can feel kind of bleak because you think this is a never-ending winter, but then you get those days in March or April where the sun comes out and it's just a little bit of warmth, and there are daffodils growing. Flowers start to emerge, the blossom comes out, and that's when you've really got to kind of go outside and get take a good breath of fresh air and get some sunlight on your skin and enjoy those moments. Maybe that's why British people, when the sun shines, we go out and we kind of take our top off and we kind of,
you see people in flip-flops in March when it's still freezing.
You got to try and get as much sunlight on your skin as you can in with that little amount of sunlight that's given. Yeah. Okay. This is really nice, Emma. Very nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's really nice to talk to you too, Luke. It's been, as we said, a long time, and it's just crazy how quickly time goes, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How the years pass, and life is busy, work is busy, and family's busy, and the years just pass by.
So
Important
basically,
to enjoy them.
Yeah, so when you see a swan on a nice river with the sun shining off the surface of the water, just have a good look at it and go, that swan is very beautiful. Look at the lovely feathers. Right?
Yeah, and that's have you heard of mindfulness? The practice. So that's basically doing that, being in the moment and acknowledging, noticing, the beautiful feathers on the swan, the sun glistening on the water. Notice how the breeze feels on your face. Being in the moment, which you need to have your phone in your pocket to do that. To really appreciate those things.
And obviously, of course, some people have got their phone out because they're enjoying this episode of the podcast. So we're not suggesting that you just shut it off, but you can always listen to the audio version. This is the wonderful thing about the audio version of this podcast, listeners, that you can be looking at a beautiful swan while also listening to the latest episode of the podcast. You don't have to be stuck to YouTube. You can always listen to the audio version. There's an idea. All right, Emma. Well, if you've got a busy day lined up, I'm going to let you go. You've probably got stuff to do.
Today I am going for a walk on the prom because, as I said, it's a lovely sunny day. The sky is blue, and we're going swimming and sauna later. So,
what are you?
Yeah,
so
with my little boy and with my husband in the pool. I'm not brave enough to go in the sea, even though we do have the sea here. Yeah, we're going swimming. My little boy's got a swimming lesson. So when he's having a swimming lesson, Mummy's in the sauna.
Great. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm going to have my lunch, and I don't know. This afternoon, I should do some work, but I'm considering taking the afternoon off because I feel like I need it. Feel like I need a little break before a busy weekend of doing things with the kids. So maybe I'll take an afternoon off. I don't know. Maybe I'll edit this episode. I haven't decided. The afternoon is open.
How long, can I ask you about that? You might want to edit this out, but how long does it take you to edit?
Well, it depends. It depends. I don't know really, honestly. I don't know, but I'll do a number of editing sessions. So I tend to kind of, when I'm working on something like an episode, normally I don't just work on one thing at a time. So I'll do a bit of editing of an episode, then I'll switch and do some preparation of something else, and then switch. So I'm always jumping around between working on different things. So I sometimes don't really count how much time it takes to edit something, but it's probably about double the length of the episode itself, but it depends. Some require a bit more work. So some of the episodes I'll do they require tons of work, and I'll spend days on them. But some episodes, I think this one won't require so much work. I'll just maybe clean up a few little bits and pieces, so that won't be too long. So maybe double the amount of time that the actual episode takes. Okay. That's quick. That's if I'm being quick. But it's all right.
And when will it be? When will it be out?
This will probably go up late October, beginning of November time.
Okay.
I reckon. Yeah.
You've got a number of them in the pipeline, have you?
I've got loads in the pipeline. Yeah. Yes.
God, you sound so busy. You must spend a lot of time in front of a laptop.
I do. Yeah, I do. I sit here right in this room, and I've got the laptop here, and then there's a window right in front of me, which is mostly the sky. That I can see the roof of the building here, and then the sky. So I do sometimes sit back, and I'll just look up at the sky. Look, if it's a nice blue sky, that's lovely. Today it's grey with clouds moving across, but I'll just kind of like stare out the window for a while, take a break. But I can just also go out for lunch, and sometimes I'll just go for a walk after lunch, just to kind of take a break from doing this. I also teach twice a week, where I'm in a classroom with a bunch of students.
That's nice. You have that people to interact with instead of just a laptop.
Yeah.
Because some people struggle with that. Lots of people that work from home can get quite depressed because they just don't see people. They don't have that personal interaction. It's really important to have a bit of variation.
It's sort of like a bit of both for me. On one hand, I love working on my own. I like having my own space, and also having the freedom to make content in any way I want. So literally, like every week, I can upload whatever I want. I have to try and make content which I think is going to appeal to my audience, and I have to try and make the right kind of content. But also, I do have the option to just do any old funny, stupid thing I feel like doing. And sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll work on an episode that is mainly just kind of a bit of a comedy episode, maybe, and that's really fun, a really fun thing to do. So the fact that I work on my own is kind of balanced out by the fact that I've got so much freedom to not just teach, but express myself, through episodes. So that's good. But then sometimes, I just get fed up being on my own. If I'm tired and I don't have any inspiration, but that's all right. I go out twice a week and teach.
But there are so many things you can do a podcast on, aren't there? Like even, obviously I don't do a podcast, but even I think, that would be great, or that, a film I've seen, or music that I like, or a place I've been, or something in the news, or, it's just endless. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's really stimulating. It's really, really, really nice for me. It's a really great channel for me to do all sorts of things. So it's great. It's like a dream job in a way.
And yeah, it's what you wanted to do, wasn't it? You've worked really hard for 10 years now, is it?
Oh, no, I've been doing the podcast for 16 and a half years.
What? 16.5 years? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. So, yeah, I kind of always wanted to do something like that, right? Something like making things, like making some content, some sort of radio thing, or making films or something. But podcast just continues to be the best thing to do, because if
how amazing.
to do radio is so complicated. You've got to work your way up in a radio station, and then no one really listens to radio anymore. Working in television, it's the same kind of thing. The industry is not doing very well, but even then, you've got to deal with so many other people to get to do the job that you actually want to do, and you've got to do it on other people's terms and stuff like that. With this, I can do whatever I want, and I have a very direct connection with the audience, the end user of what I'm doing, and so it's obviously, a great option.
Yeah, you work for yourself like me. It would be really difficult for me to work for someone else again.
Yeah.
That's why I liked being freelance in the school. I liked being freelance because I felt that I was still, my own boss, really, that I could, even though obviously the school gave me work. Sorry, I just knocked the table. I hope that's not a boom on here.
It was a bit of a boom, but it's okay. The fact that you said, sorry, I just knocked the table kind of somehow makes it all right. So that is the end of that conversation. Thank you again to Emma for taking the time to record this for the podcast. It was great to finally talk to Emma. And as I said, I've been meaning to talk about this subject with her for a long time. So it was really good to actually get it done and make this episode for you. I should say, if you feel that you've been affected by any of the things that came up during this conversation, and if you feel like you need help, then I recommend that you search for it. Go out and try and find some counselling or therapy to help you. And this is not just for people who are in a state of crisis, but obviously if that is you, then do seek help. It's vital that you do that. But even if you're not in a state of crisis, it's wise to seek counselling and therapy just to maintain your mental health in general. But anyway, if you feel like you've been affected by the things that came up, some of the things that came up in this conversation, then do go ahead and seek help, and I encourage you to do that. If you're based in the UK, you could find a counsellor using the Counselling directory, which is available at counselling-directory.org.uk. I'll put a link for that in the description. Emma is listed there. She is she works as a psychodynamic counsellor in private practice in Aberystwyth and Wales. You will find her in the Counselling directory, and you might be able to look her up. You could possibly look for sessions with her specifically if that's what you're interested in. Although I know that she's in very high demand, so she might not be able to fulfill all the different requests that might come to her from people. But you could check her out. But indeed, there are lots of counsellors available in the Counselling directory, counselling-directory.org.uk. Otherwise, if you are elsewhere, then I would just encourage you to search for counsellors or therapists near you. And I suppose the best thing I can say is just I encourage you to go out and actively search for someone. I guess there will be counselling services that you can find and that you can use to find someone. That I think would be a very good idea. Let me just remind you about the PDF for this episode, which is available in the episode show notes in the description. You'll see a script of the episode and also a big vocabulary list, including loads of words that came up. Obviously, we have, just things like counselling, therapist, talking therapy, a safe space. Counselling offers a safe space to talk about difficult feelings. We talked about confidentiality. Everything you say is treated with confidentiality. So if whatever you say in your session is considered to be private and confidential. It's kind of secret. It's not going to be publicly shared with anybody. Emma talked about the importance of building rapport and trust with the people you're working with. Rapport is a really useful word, and it just basically refers to a good, harmonious working relationship with other people. And it's not just used in the context of therapy and counselling. We talk about rapport in terms of between the members of a team. You build rapport with your colleagues. As a teacher, I build rapport with my learners. So you establish a good rapport. That's a good working relationship. It is a French word, and we pronounce it like a French word without the T. So it's not rapport, but rapport. R-A-P-P-O-R-T, but it's pronounced rapport. Good teachers build rapport with their students. Therapists establish rapport with their clients. Other words, we talked about boundaries, we talked about avoiding burnout, we talked about people pleasing. Are you a people pleaser? The sort of person who often goes out of their way to make other people around them happy. People pleasing can make you live a life that isn't really yours. You end up bending over backwards to make the people around you happy. You end up saying yes to things or agreeing to things or sort of going out of your way to try and please other people, which sometimes isn't necessarily the best thing for you. We talked about having an inner voice, a critical inner voice. Think about the way that you talk to yourself, the kind of judgmental part of your thinking. A lot of the time we all have very critical inner voices, which can be very damaging, and where does that come from? Potentially that comes from our parents when we were growing up. If our parents were very critical, very harsh with us, if they didn't give us a lot of praise, that's reflected in the way that we talk to ourselves. And it's very common for people to be very harsh with themselves, which can lead to a lot of painful feelings and a lack of self-esteem, feelings of shame. All of these words are in my list, so check out the PDF to find them. And it includes, all these words like depression, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, withdrawing emotionally. So that's where you cut yourself off from the rest of the world. You withdraw and go in and live in your own little bubble. We talk about self-care, coping mechanisms or coping strategies, ways that we cope with difficult situations. And counsellors or therapists often work on providing coping mechanisms or coping strategies, ways to deal with difficult situations, ways to manage them. And the list goes on, right? Mindfulness, grounding, things can trigger you or be triggering. The list goes on. I will let you check out the list for yourself. The link is in the description for the PDF. But that's it, listeners. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching if you've been watching this on YouTube. And have a lovely afternoon, evening, morning or night. I look forward to reading any comments that you have, if you've got anything that you can relate to this episode. And generally, look after yourselves, okay? Be nice to each other. I always say that. Be excellent to each other. But don't forget to be excellent to yourself as well. And if you got to the end of this episode, it's a fairly long episode like many of my episodes are. If you made it and you survived all the way through to the end here without turning into a skeleton with headphones on, then well done you. Give yourself a good pat on the back. Congratulations to you for being such a brilliant listener and listening all the way through to the end. Have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening or night. Be excellent to each other and to yourselves, and I will speak to you next time. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Bye, 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 bye.